Good morning, everybody. Keith Engle here. The TGI Sports Talks. Are you curious? I'll be joined shortly by my co-host, Mad New Yorker. We got a lot to chat about today. We're going to get into the NCAA tournament. First couple of rounds. Got my mouse. First couple of rounds, obviously. Let me get back to this music here. First couple of rounds, big surprises, big disappointments. We'll talk about who we think those were. Sweet 16 already a surprise, maybe not. We still got 4 more games tonight in the Sweet 16. We'll look at those, make some predictions, and look at the Elite Eight. We'll look at Rick Pitino going to St. John's. Is he the savior? Is he a nomad? I think Rick Pitino's a great coach. We'll look at the legacy of Willis Reed. How great was Willis Reed? And what impact did he leave on the NBA and the Knicks? And the Nets, for that matter, by the way. And then maybe if we have time, we'll get to some quarterbacks in the NFL draft. We'll see how that goes. Just a couple of quick notes before I bring Carlos in the room. We're live on Northeast Streaming Sports, obviously. We're simulcasting on Let's Talk Sports. Afterwards, you can always catch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can replay the show anytime. And also, we'll be sharing it to all of my favorite groups, the ones that really support this show, and we really appreciate it. Also, last night, go back, and I'll be sharing this to some groups this morning. The Kermit Washington interview I did last week aired last night. It's really a great interview with a guy who's had a lot of major ups and major downs in his life, came from nothing, made himself something, big, huge college star at American University, one of only 7 guys averaged 20 points and 20 rebounds in a career in the NCAA. We talk about that. We talk about the Rudy T incident. We talk about some humanitarian efforts that he did that kind of went sideways on him. And he's very frank, and we'll get his perspective because he lived through it, and we want to hear Kermit's story. And last night, by the way, I did a interview with Matt Robinson, former Georgia Bulldog quarterback with the Jets, Broncos, the Bills for a little bit. And we talk about, squandered opportunities. Matt Robinson had a lot of talent, had won the job with the Jets in I want to say 1978, maybe 79. Had an injury, hit it from his coach, was also a bit of a wild child, and never reached his potential. And he's very honest about his travels through Georgia program with Vince Dooley and his travel through the NFL. And we'll talk a lot about that. We had a great hour. It was really, really a lot of fun. It was just a great conversation. Sometimes you get those where it's very easy to do. And then make sure you check us out. Let's Talk Sports. Let's Talk New York Sports, I should say. Let's Talk New York Sports. With myself and Dan Harris will be on at 5 p.m. tonight live. Certainly jump in and share your comments, and we'll see what happens with my vlog and Major League Baseball update. Got a busy day today with some contractors coming by and whatnot, so we'll see what we have time for. And, of course, Sunday Stream of Consciousness on Sunday. There's the business end of this. Let's bring in the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez. Good morning, Carlos.
Yo. Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy morning, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. Had to take a few shots of medicine,
Sick. See, I'm just recovering. I gave it to everybody else.
It's more of an upset sickness from last night's game, so.
Oh, I see. I'm tired from last night's game. I can't stay up till freaking 12:30 at night watching these games. My gosh.
They were good ones.
I was ready to go to bed early, actually, because Gonzaga was getting blown out. Then all of a sudden they came back. Had a big lead. They blow that lead. It was an exciting finish for sure, and quite a roller coaster. But we'll talk about all of that as well. I want to talk about the first couple of rounds as well, and what we feel the surprises were, who the big disappointments were. I mean, there's a couple of obvious ones that will, Purdue and Virginia are obvious disappointments, but there's a couple other in my mind as well that aren't quite as obvious. And what are your thoughts on the tournament thus far?
Yeah, so I think we kind of called it, right? We were saying that these teams that were in the mid-majors and the smaller conferences were actually almost as competitive and as good as the major The 8 teams or the 8 conferences. So I think we did pretty good job as far as like saying that much.
Yeah, I just picked the wrong high seats to go too far. That was my problem.
Yeah, I mean, like it's this tournament is exciting, and every year it's something to be getting ready for especially after the new year and all those bowl seasons end for college football, and then you have this a few weeks, a month later, and it's great. It's good for NCAA in college basketball. It's good for the smaller universities to get their names out there, and it's just an exciting time of year. You have baseball coming up. You have the draft, some of these drafts. So you have the WB. There's a lot of stuff going on. So
yeah, it is. You know what? And again, we'll get into the WBC in a little bit, but I kind of think it fills a void for me anyway, and I like that tournament a lot. But sticking with this tournament, it's funny. I'm talking about disappointments, and I had this problem Wednesday night when you look at surprises. Who's a surprise anymore? Because this happens every year. Obviously, only twice has a 16 beat a 1. This is just the second time FDU beat Purdue, but it's 2 times in 3 years. This is not going to go away.
Oh no, and it's not.
Parity is alive in NCAA basketball.
Yeah, and it's set up for a good tournament, especially if we're a smaller team trying to make profit and trying to make a little bit of a noise. Right now, rest in peace to St. Francis in Brooklyn, New York. They cut out all their
sad story. Yeah,
you don't want things like that to happen. And
interesting parallel too, as FDU, who's not too same kind of size school, very similar, I think, universities, especially athletic departments, and one's having one of their biggest moments ever, while the other one's shutting the doors on everything. It's kind of a sad state.
Yeah,
see this.
And my wife, she's an alum of St. Francis College.
Yeah.
She graduated from there in Brooklyn and Park Slope. And my thing is this, guys, and you athletes, you guys who have money and support other sports, you support college basketball, man. Support these small schools.
Mm-hmm.
Support your competitors, so that way these big schools, they're going to get money no matter what. They have those huge TV contracts. A team like St. Francis, they've had their ups and downs, but you're talking about the oldest basketball team in New York, and before the Power Five and all that other stuff. Then they were the ones making history. They're some of the reasons why New York basketball is where it's at, and now it's a program that's just disappeared. So if anybody's listening out there that's a former athlete that wants to, invest in some of these small schools, invest in some of these schools that, give opportunities to people who don't have an opportunity to go to a bigger university.
I agree. As living in an area where there's 2 Division I schools, not, big schools, Siena in the MAC and Albany State in what do they play in? I think they play in the NEAC, I think. But again, it's good basketball. Albany State's been down for a couple of years now, but Siena's, perennially at least a good team. They killed Iona, who made the NCAA tournament, had a great year. They killed them up here in Albany just a month ago. So there's some good, as you say, there's some good basketball being played there. I wonder if St. Francis, just to stay on that for a second, isn't a victim of, well, first of all, New York basketball is kind of down right now. I mean, historically, there's been some great universities that have actually gone the wayside, at least sports-wise. Back in the 50s, it was the New York University, NYCC. I can't remember what exactly the acronym was, but it wasn't even any of the universities we think of. But I wonder if little schools like St. Francis, even FDU, get lost because there's so much basketball around New York, New Jersey area, right? You got St. John's, you got Rutgers, you got Manhattan, Iona. You just got a lot of Seton Hall.
Right. St. Peter's is last year who made a run.
There's a proliferation of schools, and again, the alumni will support it, but the people who are just casual fans, I wonder if they just kind of, go wherever the hot team is, maybe. But anyway, it's sad to see, as you said, a little school like that going away. because I like to root for these underdogs. I think FDU beating Purdue is a tremendous story. And it's going to look at, and these coaches, Tobin Anderson, pretty much capitalized in about one day after they got beat because Rick Pitino leaves Iona and he fills his seat. Not the biggest upgrade, but it's certainly an upgrade from FDU to Iona from FDU for sure.
Yeah, and St. John's is a university that's huge here in Queens, in my backyard. They got programs, and it's not going to go anywhere. But it was possible that the athletic program has been suffering, and this is a good transition for them to go to have a coach like Rick Pitino and to bring back a little bit of that moxie that they had in basketball because they were missing it for a while.
Yeah.
And every time somebody comes in with the name Chris Mullen or and it was like it's a transition. But this is going to be an actual transition. This is going to be because he's a purist, a basketball purist, and it's going to bring some as long as you know what you're getting, right? He's a great basketball coach, great basketball mind. He is not a great humanitarian. He is not, one of the great people walking the face of the earth and a great molder of young men. But if you want to revive a basketball program, he's a pretty good guy to do it. He won everywhere he's been, 31 seasons. He's got one losing season. Mm-hmm. Coached at BU, turned that program around. Coached at Providence, turned that program around. Got him to the Final Four in '87, I think. Went to a Kentucky program that had almost got the death penalty before he got there, and won the national championship. Yeah, and how many championships and appearances did he make in Kentucky? When I was living in Tennessee, if you didn't follow Kentucky basketball, you was just blinded from everywhere. At that point when he was there, Tennessee didn't even have a program. Tennessee was going through different coaches. So Rick Pitino he's the man, and he brings relevancy to no matter what job he takes, and that's going to help St. John's. And to me, I wish he would have been there a few years, a few years before. But it is what it is, and he's going to be here in Queens, and he's going to help St. John's. And
he's a young 70. He said he wants.
Oh no, I'm not saying that he's old. I'm just saying that I want him. I would like to see someone of his caliber and relevancy be at St. John's for 5 to 10 years minimum.
He signed a 7-year contract, so it's not like he's going anywhere anytime soon, and he's going to get a long leash. We know that. But he turns programs around pretty quickly. Now, St. John's is a tough place to recruit to because of the facilities. There's no real campus. We all know the stories, but I guarantee you, as Rick Pitino was negotiating this contract, a lot of this stuff came up. Yeah. We're going to play more at the Garden. In fact, there's talk that within a couple of years they may play all their games at the Garden.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that they even mentioned the Garden because they just put up an arena right next door to St. John's.
But that's the mecca of basketball. That's a draw for kids, right? If you say we're playing all your home games or half your home games in the Garden, that's an actual draw for those kids.
Is it a draw for the Knicks? I mean, seriously, like right now, the only thing about the Madison Square Garden is that it's on 42nd Street. But other than that, I mean, I guess if you want to keep your alumni happy and have it at Madison Square Garden, do that. But the only thing about that is that, it's pretty much your alumni going to watch those games because kids can't go. You understand? Kids can't go in there and watch that game, and that's if that's who you're trying to build from.
No, I don't think they are.
The younger generation,
did you watch basketball in the 80s and 90s in the Big East? The Garden was.
I think where you're getting at, and the difference is that at that time frame, the Big East was huge. It was competitive.
Can be again.
All the coaches were top notch. Right now, I think that's one of the struggles. Right, is that good morning, Bob. What are we gonna see? What are we gonna see from the the conference that St. John's is gonna, who they're gonna play? Like what competition is gonna be there, and is there an actual rivalry anymore?
This league will benefit greatly from St. John's and Georgetown being relevant again. And another coach I got hired this week was Ed Cooley at Georgetown, and it's a great hire for Georgetown. If somebody's going to turn that program around, Ed Cooley's the right guy, I think, to do it. He did it at Providence, with tough circumstances there. It's not easy to recruit to Georgetown, I don't think, either. Right. Who wants to go to Washington, D.C. to play basketball?
Yeah, and listen, two things. and then we can move forward on the rest of the NCAA, is that what I like Pitino said, he's not going to bring back everybody from the team, which is good. And the second thing is that he wants to just make sure that he beats out Calipari's winning record. And I was like, you know what, you might not win every game, but as long as you beat Calipari, if that's what your goal is, at least you got some. You know what I'm saying?
It's interesting because Calipari was a disciple of Rick Pitino, but they've had an interesting rivalry over the years since Coach Calipari.
It's good. It's fair to say they've had an awesome rivalry.
Yeah.
So let's leave it at that. And talking about Calipari and one of the schools that he formerly coached, which I feel like I wish they would have stuck around longer, is Memphis with Anthony Hardaway. I feel that team should have played a little better, and
that's one of my and listen, before I go here, I agree with you 100%. Before we let Calipari go and you talk about one of the schools he coached, let's not forget he got out ahead of the posse twice. UMass and Memphis both. He got out of those before the posse got there. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, as far as the disappointments in the first round, obviously Virginia, Purdue, very obvious ones. But one of the less obvious ones to me is Memphis. They were playing such good basketball. And Marquette as well. I had both teams getting to the Elite Eight. Really blew up my bracket in the, what were they playing in the East, I think? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just blew up my bracket. I had those two in the Elite Eight, and I had Marquette winning it all. So those are two of the bigger disappointments to me because, the 15s and the 1s and 2s that lose, that's very obvious stuff, right? But you did see, by the way, in both those games, exactly why these smaller teams can compete with the big boys when it gets to tournament time because they're experienced. They don't seem to get rattled. They got good coaching. Mm-hmm. You saw in Virginia at the end of that Furman game, just a horrendous inbounds play. I mean, they got a timeout. The kid doesn't call timeout. He throws the ball up over his head. Furman gets, one of the worst plays I've ever seen. Exciting for Furman, but one of the worst plays for a team to lose that I've ever seen in the NCAA tournament. And Purdue is kind of the same thing. Inexperienced guards. FDU is able to get Eddie off his spot just enough, and the guards couldn't get him the basketball in the right spot. And those are little things. They seem like little things, but that's what wins basketball games.
Yeah, did you watch the Tennessee game last night?
I did. Ugly. Can't shoot the basketball as always.
My thing was, and again, you saw what was Tennessee's downfall at the end was the consistency. They had no consistency. I feel like yesterday they tried to instead of playing their own game and then try to make those switches around. They were just switching around so much. Barnes had them moving around so much in different the roster changes so much that there wasn't no continuity. There wasn't no consistent continuity on that team. And I believe that Duke game had Tennessee came out and played like they played Duke. Now, of course,
that was an ugly game. It was like watching rugby for credit.
Yeah, of course, FAU is a different team than Duke. But had Tennessee come out and just play basketball, and I hate to say this, but the bully got bullied. And they tried to beat up on a small team, and the small team was just too fast, too quick, and very consistent in shooting the ball. So if that's something they can't keep doing, then that's something that is going to make that team,
And another veteran school. That's just not a school that kids leave after 1 year, 2 years.
No, they had a few guys that's been there 2 or 3 years, and they're freshmen. And they're freshmen. Actually, their bench helped them, right? Yeah. So that's a good little. Well, it's a good team that's very deep. So
it's a great point. The difference between, say, FAU, and maybe say Drake or Virginia Commonwealth is Virginia Commonwealth and Drake. Drake played a great game in the first round against Miami till 5 minutes left in the game. They just ran out of gas. They didn't go deep enough. They're throwing air balls up on like every 3-pointer they put up the last 4 or 5 minutes. But FAU goes deep. And this is a great story. It's kind of getting lost in the story about FDU early on. Now Princeton's still alive, and I like Princeton tonight, by the way. We'll talk more about that. But FAU's kind of getting lost. They were never ranked before this year. They were ranked a good part of the year. I don't know I think they might have fallen out of the rankings by the last ranking before the tournament. And this is a good basketball team and well coached, and I think he's done a great job. And I'll give them a fighting chance, because they're playing Kansas State, who, they got by Michigan State last night. Not a vintage Michigan State Tom Izzo team.
No,
and they just got by, but I saw some really, really bad decision making from Kansas State in that game. Again, talking about what we're, when you get down to the nitty gritty, they got bailed out on a 3-pointer. Why the kid shooting a 3-pointer from about 40 feet with 5 seconds left on the clock is nuts. I mean, he's lucky the ball got tipped and went out of bounds. They got the ball back. They would have lost that game. So I think FAU's got a really good chance to get to the Final Four.
They do, and in the Arkansas game, Arkansas didn't play well at all. They couldn't
there.
They couldn't get going. You again. I mentioned it the other day with the Hurley brothers coaching, and this time in UConn, they have, I'm gonna say, a scrappy team, and they play together very well, and they're big. The problem is that I think for UConn is going to be, can the 6 go deep enough? Because once they start calling on 7, 8, and 9,
I think they do go deep enough, and I think you saw it a little bit. Listen, since halftime of the Iona game in round 1, where they're trailing Iona at halftime, this team has played lights out. They beat a really good St. Mary's team. They beat them up pretty good. This is an Arkansas team that's been playing great. They beat the number 1 seed in the tournament in Kansas.
How Hurley got to slow this Arkansas team down was an incredible coaching job. The kids executed to perfection, and that's a scary UConn team. Remember, UConn was ranked in the top 10 for the beginning of the season before they went on that losing skid.
They got high as number 2 before they went in the toilet in January, I think it was. So, listen, they took away what Arkansas did well against Kansas. Kansas couldn't defend the rim. Now, and Arkansas doesn't have great inside play, but they would tack the basket all the time. They were always tacking the basket, and I think UConn and made them shoot jump shots, and they're not a great shooting team. So, well coached. Danny Hurley did a great job. UConn, who are they going to get? They're going to get the Gonzaga, right? That's going to be a fun matchup, because that Gonzaga UConn game last night, as we just talked about briefly, was crazy. Gonzaga was getting manhandled most of the game. Middle of the second half, they just take over. UCLA didn't score a basket for 10 minutes. And Gonzaga goes from a 14-point deficit to an 11-point lead in a very short period of time, and then they blow that lead. That was an exciting finish. I mean, maybe not great, well-played basketball, but it was an exciting finish.
I'm just going to have to say this, and it sucks to say, because UCLA did a fairly great job this season. They just ran out of gas.
Yeah, well, the injuries caught up with them, I think, and again, they didn't go deep because of it. Missing out on Clark, probably the best defensive player. He's definitely the best defensive player in that conference, and maybe the best in the country, or one of the best in the country, and that hurt them a lot. Yeah. And Gonzaga survived shooting, because they shot foul shots horrendously down the stretch. Another thing you have to do in these tournament games is make your foul shots.
Yeah, especially if they're going to give them to you. Make your shots.
The only way they can get back in the game.
Well, I mean, for instance, in the Tennessee game, they were getting foul shots left and right, and they were missing them. So
you got, again, make foul shots. You're going to stay in these games. Otherwise, you're going to lose. That's it. So again, exciting basketball. Maybe not the best play. And Mark Few, by the way, doesn't get enough respect. This guy's a top 5 coach in the country.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that on Wednesday, right?
He does not get enough respect. This guy's got this team here. Somebody said, I was on with Nick Bodkins and Johnny Cruz last night, and they were kind of ripping Gonzaga that, this is where they always go out. They always lose in this round. Well, he's had them in the Final Four twice in the last 6 years, and in the final twice. He didn't win, but he's been in the final twice in 6 years. That's not choking basketball. I mean, this is a consistent program, and he's made it that way over the 24 years he's been there.
The thing is stamina, Keith, and these kids are playing with little rest and in between, and it catches up with you, man. I mean, it don't matter how old you are. You can only play so much so long, and it'll catch up to you. I mean, if you want to make a comparison, look at the World Cup in soccer. It's the same thing. They're playing every single day. They're playing like every 2 or 3 days, and then eventually, it'll catch up to you. So.
Well, they're all playing under the same conditions. They all play every other day. Well, no, you get a week, almost. Well, not a week, but you get 4 or 5 days once the
and you can't go. Like you can't take them off. You still have to warm up, keep them out. You got travel. So it's like it's part of the game, and So,
what do you think about? Let's look at tonight's games because again, everything's been a surprise. Tonight we've got what do we got? Hold on, I'm in the bottom of this ranking. I got to get back to the top. So tonight we got the South. Sweet 16, Alabama, San Diego State. San Diego State's another team. Alabama better not take this team lightly. I like Alabama to get to the Final Four, but don't take them lightly. And I think
San Diego State's one of those teams, man.
I think Princeton continues their run here in the South and beats Creighton and gets to the Elite Eight. Yeah, I got to make one disclaimer here, though. I've read a lot since Princeton got to the Sweet 16 that what a great story this is, and it is a great story, by the way. First time they got to the Sweet 16 since 1966. Well, I'm guessing in 1966 they needed to win one game to get to the Sweet 16. So I don't think that was as impressive as this. Plus, it was a better basketball program then, and you didn't have the disparity between the programs. And they had one Bill Bradley at the time as well.
What like the only thing that sticks in my head when you talk about Creighton is like, is the coach like every 5 seconds at the end of the last game, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Focus. It's like, and he's just in their ear, and that's a great coach team. It's sad that he didn't make it with his son a few years back when they had the opportunity. I think they just, I think they're deep enough. They just need to, play that game plan to perfection, and I think they'll beat out Princeton.
It's been a very up and down team. They were picked to win the Big East and be a top 10 ranked team this year early in the season, and they kind of struggled out of the gate. They played pretty well down the stretch, and they could stay hot, but they could throw a stinker in here. And Princeton, this isn't your normal Princeton.
Yeah, this is another thing. This isn't your normal Princeton.
Those kids are athletic, and they can play. I mean, they do some of the old Pete Carell stuff. You see some backdoor stuff, but this is a team that can shoot the three, they can play defense, and they take you out of your game, and it's a fun team to watch. And how can you not root for them tonight?
Yeah, and the thing is that they're fundamentally sound. That's the thing that we miss out in basketball right now is having a team that's fundamentally sound. And Princeton is one of those teams. Unfortunately, they're also a good shooting team from behind the arc. So you got to just be wary of that. But Donovan's a good coach. Hopefully, these kids can execute what he's trying to put out there. And we're gonna see good matchups tonight. Miami plays Houston. Xavier plays Texas.
Let me stick here before we go over to the other side of the bracket. Let me stick here for a second. Alabama, San Diego State. I'll give San Diego State a fighting chance, but I think Alabama beats them. I can't be shocked. Let's just say I'm right. It's Alabama and Princeton in the Elite Eight on Sunday. I don't think you could be shocked if Princeton beat them and went to the Final Four. I don't think you could be shocked.
I don't think you could be shocked, but that's not the expectation.
I don't think it's going to happen. I've still got Alabama. It's one of the few teams I got left. I got 3 teams left in my Final Four picks, but unfortunately, the team I had winning it all isn't one of them. So I'm pretty much dead, and I'm with you in the brackets. But everybody's just blowing up.
Are we on the bottom looking up?
Well, I'm in the middle, but without the winner, it's hard. Unless nobody gets the winner, then other things can come into play. But Alabama's the only number one I liked getting there. So, again, don't be surprised if Princeton shocks the world. Or, actually, I'm not even going to call it a shock if they make the Final Four at this point. We can move over to the other side of the bracket, which is the Midwest. Good matchups again. Houston, as you said, against Miami.
Yeah.
Xavier, I think, is a good matchup. Houston's good. Is Houston playing as well as they played during the season? I don't think so, because Sasser and who's the other kid? Shed is not. They're both. The health is still a question mark. They looked pretty good against Auburn, but again, I don't know how much of that was Auburn's ineptitude or how good Houston was. Miami played really well against Indiana after really stinking but all but 5 minutes of that Drake game. It's an intriguing matchup. I'm going to take Houston I'm going to take Miami because I have an allegiance to them, but it's not with a lot of confidence. This is going to be a fun game.
I don't know what the health is for these kids that are very important and critical to the team aspect of what they've been doing for the last.
Talking about Houston?
Yeah, for the last 3 months. So, and they weren't really that deep to begin with, right? They were about 7 players deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you take 2 guys out of the equation. But sometimes when you put
they looked healthy against Auburn. We'll see. I mean, again, Sasser looked healthy against the first round. I don't remember who they played now.
Yeah, but it wasn't a big team that played.
Northern Kentucky. But he got hurt at halftime. I don't think he played after the half. Now they didn't need him against Northern Kentucky either.
They pulled him out, right? So I don't know, man.
Miami's got to shoot the ball better. They looked ugly against Drake. Wong, who was the ACC player of the game, he made 1 field goal in that game, I believe. Maybe he made it 1 late in the game, but he was just atrocious. And I love Jim Larraguer. I think he's another underrated coach in this country. But you got to get these kids to get the ball in the basket and play a little bit more disciplined. If they do, they'll beat Houston tonight, I think.
I just I like it that some of these kids can shoot, but attack the basket, man. A lot of these teams don't have big guys. Some of their taller guys are like 6'5", 6'6", and go right at them. And if the guy's over 6'6", it doesn't matter. He's less likely to stop you, right? So.
Let me comment. CA, I think, has talked about a link he was trying to set up for a fantasy baseball team. I could not get to it, CA. So why don't you? I gave you my email address before. Send it there. In fact, my email address is on the TGI Sports Talk page as well. Send it there, and then I can get it on our page and share it with with the regulars, and maybe we can get that filled up. Because sometimes in the comments, when you go back to the show, it's hard to get to all the comments. So maybe do that. So back to, please let me know whether you all see St. He shared a link about St. Francis, apparently, which we may have seen. So anyway, yes, sad story with St. Francis. So anyway, I interrupted you. Are you picking Miami tonight?
I mean, I think I think that's going to be like a 3 to 5 point score differential in that game. So either team can take it. And whoever plays better.
Well, that's not, that's an easy thing to say, right?
I would like Houston to make it because Samson's he's a good coach.
I'm asking you to tell me who's gonna play better. These are 2 good coaches. They're both good coaches.
Yeah, but I think Miami is gonna succumb Houston's.
Okay, fair enough.
And you're one of the best teams they've ever had. So.
The other side of this bracket has a very intriguing matchup. Number 2, Texas against number 3, Xavier. Xavier's played really good. Sean Miller back there, his second year back, I think, after getting chased out of Arizona. Speaking of getting out ahead of the posse, Sean Miller goes back to where he made his bones at Xavier, and he's turned them into a power in East again, or Midwest, I guess. They play in Eastern.
Cincinnati.
Right. I say in the East because they play in the Big East, but that isn't relevant anymore, right? So this is a great matchup. And Rodney Terry's done a great job taking over Texas. How he's not already been named the head coach, the full-time head coach, is shocking to me. If he makes the Final Four, I don't know how they can't. I see Texas beating Xavier tonight, but I think it'll be a close game.
Yeah, I picked Texas to be in the final, in the Elite Eight. So
I have them in the Final Four, actually. So I've got Texas beating Miami in the next round, getting to the Final Four.
I think I have them in the Final Four too. I don't remember my bracket's so diluted and misconstrued.
Your thoughts on the Texas coaching job? I mean, they're holding out hope they can get a huge name like John Calipari, which.
Well, I think what Texas is doing is just trying to make their money count, go a long way. They always try to go and make a big splash before any season, whether it's football or basketball, and they want to get these recruits in, right? But I think this time what their AD is doing is just missing out on an opportunity to keep a good coach in the right position.
Done a good job. I mean, he left UTEP, I believe, to come here and be Chris Beard's assistant. And then he took over under some pretty difficult circumstances and did a great job. So I'm going to take Texas to get to the Final Four out of this region, and Alabama, as I said, out of the South in the games that are played tonight.
And one last thing, him leaving UTEP
Sunday, by the way.
Him leaving UTEP to be Chris Beard's assistant. Where's UTEP this year?
Nowhere, I don't believe.
So if you don't think this guy's not a good coach, then you're not in the right state of mind to be making decisions about basketball. I'm sorry, but
agree. I agree because, and it hurts me to say that. I agree with you, but because I think Texas is showing him a bit of disrespect here.
Yeah, Keith. I mean, there as much as Chris Beard has his own personal issues, the man has taken over a group of young men and has made them a championship caliber team. Like,
yeah.
And yeah, of course, some of these are high recruits and some of the best players in the South. But if you look at different teams, UCLA, if you look at the Pac-10, like if you look at different conferences, and they've all have elite players on their team, but they haven't gone as far. My man, you got to make a decision now before somebody else comes under there and takes this guy away, man. I mean. Yeah,
he's under no obligation to stay either. He could take another job for tomorrow. So, and there are some schools looking for coaches, and there may be a couple more. You know, I akin it to if you invite me to a party and I say, you know what, I'll come as long as I don't find a better party to go to. I'll be there.
You won't ever find a better party, Keith.
You never invite me to a party anyway, so it doesn't matter. Do we pick a Final Four for the other two regions? We got FAU against Kansas State. I'm going to say FAU makes the Final Four.
Woo! Out of Conference USA.
They're going to beat Kansas State because I wasn't crazy about what I saw to Kansas State last night against Michigan.
Man.
A lot of bad decision making. They're a great story this year with their coach and a transfer from Kentucky leading them this far. But I just got a feeling you're going to see an FAU get to the Final Four here.
So they're going to play
Gonzaga on the other side of that bracket.
Yeah, I think UConn and FAU, and then
interesting matchup.
And then I have let's see, I said Miami, right? And
you got them going to the Final Four?
Miami and Texas, yeah.
Oh, who's going to get to the Final Four from those two teams, though?
I had Texas from the get.
Okay, me too.
So,
and I've got Alabama.
Alabama.
Sneaking by Princeton in the Elite Eight. It's going to be. They're going to get there. They're going to get tested greatly.
Oh my goodness!
They've been the best team in the tournament so far. Alabama. They've been a team that's played to their potential. I think more than any other team. And the highly ranked teams, right? Obviously, FAU, Princeton's played to their potential as well. But of they were high ranked teams, I think they've been by far the best team. And playing through, again, also some interesting circumstances off the court with Miller having to have security because of death threats and everything else going on. Now Nick Saban's speaking up about it, and Nate Oates has got to just shut up, Nick. Listen, this isn't a good situation on there. I'm not excusing away anything. Nate Oates made some mistakes here. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think this is a lack of institutional control. I think he's not wrong that you can't watch these kids 24 hours a day. And if you bring bad kids in your program, they're probably going to do bad things. So you got to do better.
Your expectations can't exceed your what decisions can precede your expectations if you're not making good decisions, man. Come on.
He didn't handle this very well, but I think Nate Oates is basically a good person, and he's a really good coach. So they've done a good job of, I don't know. I said this last night when I was on the Bodkin show, and I'm probably going to get in trouble when I repeat it, but maybe the fact that these type of things, one of your teammates indicted for murder, another one accused of bringing the gun, even though he didn't know he was bringing a gun for him to kill. Don't you ask a question? If my friend says, "Hey, can you bring my gun up to the bar?" I'd say, "Why? Do you want it?"
Sure. How many bullets do you want in there?
But
I don't know what to do with it.
Maybe these kids, maybe this doesn't distract them because a lot of them come from backgrounds where this stuff's happening all the time. So maybe that's why, their upbringing and their not their upbringing necessarily, but the neighborhoods they come from. Look at kids are in trouble all the time. Murders are happening all the time. And
look, I've lived in the city. I've been in the city. I've been in and out of the city. I've been in different places. And number one thing is as long as you watch your own back, don't worry about what anybody else is doing. And sometimes these kids, they don't think nothing of it.
So you've never delivered a murder weapon to a friend of yours?
I've been delivering murder weapons to people all my life working at a fast food restaurant. I just didn't realize it until I got older. A heart attack is just as bad as a shooting. So
that's true. That's true. So don't be bringing me any double quarter pounders or whatever from McDonald's.
I used to work at a nice little fried chicken place, and I thought I was doing a good thing, but apparently I wasn't.
Alan, welcome, Alan. It's good to see you this morning. Alan's going with a double upset of FAU over Kansas State and UConn over Gonzaga. Listen, I got to tell you, I think UConn might be favored in this game.
Yeah, I don't think that's an upset.
No, I don't think it's an upset either, but FAU will definitely be an upset.
Let's talk about one more old college great, and that's Mr. Willis Reed. God bless his soul.
Yeah, I want to get into that real quick for sure. Let me just change my mind. Willis Reed passed away here, Tuesday, I guess. Where are you? There you are. 80 years old, the heart and soul of the Knicks when they last won. They won 2 championships, haven't won one since Willis retired, I think a year after the second championship. This is a guy that Knicks fans, I don't think, at least during those championship seasons, never got to see even how good he was. He wasn't the best player on these teams.
No, like I saw what I saw of Willis Reed was mostly a videotape, some black and white, a lot more in color. Is the fact that he when he played hard, and he probably averaged about maybe 15 to 18 minutes a game every time he played. But I mean, for the position he played in
later in his career, he did. Early on, he played a lot of minutes.
Yeah. I'm talking about like throughout his career. Yeah, but from what I've seen and the position he played and for what he did for the Knicks and giving opportunities to all the other guys on the team, DeBusschere and Bradley and
he averaged 35 minutes a game in his career, by the way, just an FYI.
I mean, that's crazy.
Now later in his career, he did. It was 27, 26 because now injuries had caught up with him.
Yeah, by that time, yeah. So even Floyd, not Floyd. What's his name? It's keeping my mind. The commentator for the Walter Frazier.
Yeah, great player.
So him being the stalwart in that position and playing center / or forward, he was a great player for their team. And he helped them win championships, and that's what that's as much as what you can ask for. When people say that Patrick Ewing is better than Willis Reed, I feel like these are because some of these fans never got to see, like you said, Willis Reed play. So
again, he was a great player, but Frazier was a better player. DeBusschere was probably a better player, but the heart and soul, and I talk about this all the time, the heart and soul and the leader of that team was Willis Reed.
Yeah.
That Game 7 against the Lakers in 1970, after he got hurt in Game 6, they got blown out. Didn't look good. Willis wasn't going to play, but he came out during warm-ups. You watch it even all these years later, and you get goosebumps watching.
Sure, yeah, man.
He came out. He made 2 baskets the whole game, but they were the first 2 shots of the game, and it set the tone for the game. Frazier goes off in that game, by the way. Had one of the best games I think ever, maybe in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. But Willis Reed is what set the tone for them winning. And by the way, he played against guys. They list him. I see him 6'10". I think Willis was more like 6'9". And he's playing center against guys like Kareem and Wilt, who got 5-6 inches on him in some cases. Walt, not so much Walton, but Lanier. A lot of big guys. And he was just the heart.
Holding his own.
Plus, he was with this organization. He coached with the organization. He was a GM with the organization. He later went to the Nets, and he helped build a team. He coached the Nets a little bit, and he helped build a team that went to the finals twice. They lost to the Lakers in San Antonio, I think, when Jason Kidd was there. Mm-hmm. He helped orchestrate some of those trades. He brought in Kerry Kittles. He brought in some of the guys that were the nucleus of that team. So Willis Reed has been an integral part of New York basketball and the NBA in general for 50 years, and it's sad to see him go. Great player, and he'll set a great player in person, and he'll be missed. Great player Grambling, by the way, in college. That's why I brought him up Wednesday night on the college show, because he was a great player at Grambling, at a school that wasn't getting a lot of recognition at that time.
He made them relevant for sure. And you said the most important thing, and I think that sometimes is missed. And like you always talk about in the leadership, but he set the tone. And when you were that man on the team and you set the tone, you don't have to be the best player. You just got to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And the same thing with Derek Jeter. He wasn't always slamming home runs, but he tried to hit a home run to make a noise, right? Or he tried to make a great play to make noise. And that's what you do. You set the tone, and you bring the focus back on to winning and trying to get over the teams that you're playing. So
yeah, let me go backwards. We got a couple comments going backwards. I think CA is talking about our conversation about Alabama, when society doesn't give correct degrees of consequences to both gender's responsibilities as well as criminal behaviors. Boy, you're really with it today, CA.
I mean, CA, the problem here is not basketball. The problem is that these guys are in trouble and they play basketball. And the biggest issue is that one of the guys who was playing basketball, people are already condemning him, and then they're already putting him in and saying that he's guilty. Where at the end of the day, that's something that has to be taken to court for that to happen. And so we always, as fans and the media, will throw guilt out, and we make somebody a guilty person before they even get an opportunity to go to be in court. Remember, a great player was found guilty in the eyes of the media and the fans before he even went to court, and he came out of court not in the good situation. That's a great Kobe Bryant right there. So you can't just say somebody's guilty.
Little different situation. He didn't kill him.
I'm just saying that there even what's his name, Big Ben Roethlisberger, and yes, a different situation. Ray Lewis. Look, these guys have to go to court.
Big Ben was guilty of what he did, though. I mean, he wasn't exonerated. I mean,
but
there are stories on both sides of this, right? And people get the benefit of the doubt. You don't think Ray Lewis was involved in those murders in Atlanta? He was there.
What I'm saying is that the media and the fans were already throwing these athletes under a bus because they have higher expectations of them, and their expectations are not met, or for whatever reason, and that's not your favorite team, or that whatever it is, and you have to understand that we live in a society where things will be dealt with, consequences will be given, but these people still have to go to court, and we still have to understand that that's a procedure.
And the Ray Lewises put themselves out there in front of everything, put themselves on a pedestal, and then that's why they're going to have the spotlight showing on. Then they don't like it, and then they get exonerated and get away with it and get reinstated to play, and they want to pass judgment on other guys for letting errors out of a football. So I guess maybe I got a little gripe with Ray Lewis.
But the problem, Keith, is that these situations and these people, they're all kind of different, and they all happen in their own little ways. But I mean, at the end of the day, once a person is considered an athlete in college, a superstar, or becomes a superstar, the light is shined on them, whether they're putting it on themselves or not. Now, a lot of great players and good people have tried to dim that light and stay away from that, but that's not everybody, man.
Well, you know what? You also find out that a lot of these coaches, whether it's recruiting kids from high school to college or from college to the pros, they know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Aaron Hernandez is a great example. Urban Meyer knew what he was getting when he brought him to Florida. He was a problem and in trouble the entire time he was there. Bill Belichick knew what he was drafting, and did they know they were drafting a serial killer? No, but they knew he was going to be a problem most likely. So they either don't do enough due diligence, which I don't believe, or they turn a blind eye to that stuff, and especially in college. So Anyway, back to the game on the floor. Alan's saying keep an eye on Creighton. Look at whoever. I think Creighton gets beat, as I said, against Princeton tonight. But I'm not. I'll tell you, anybody left in this tournament would not shock me at all to go all the way and win, because anybody.
At this point, everybody seems to have a fair chance and crack at the position. So.
And Creighton, when they play well, Alan, when they play well, Creighton is a really, really good basketball team. But they've been very inconsistent, and I think you may see one of those inconsistent things coming up because Princeton forces you into that type of thing. Alex Simpson, good. Welcome to the show. I don't know if I've seen Alec here before, so we welcome you. We hope you'll like and follow TGI Sports Talk if you haven't done it already, and share it with your friends. Alan says it's all about money with Ray Lewis, and he made the NFL way too much money for them to turn him in. I don't disagree. Alan or Alec, I don't disagree with your comment even one bit. That's why they turned a blind eye.
Wasn't Ray Lewis on the Madden cover of a
yeah, probably where he killed two people in Atlanta. He was on the cover, for crying out loud. So
I mean, like, listen, all these guys make money for the NFL. The NFL makes money for the NFL. But money begets money. But at the end of the day, consequences will be given to those who, And if they're not given to a person by the court of law, it's given to them by their own guilt and the lives that they live. Right? Some people make mistakes and don't get in trouble by the law, but then they don't live a good life because of stuff that they have hanging over their heads and hearts.
Yeah. And I got into an argument with a guy on one of these podcasts I guessed on one night, and or maybe I was just commenting. And he said everybody deserves a second chance. Not everybody deserves a second chance. No, they don't. Some do. But if you're beating your wife, this was about some of the. I don't know who we were talking about. Somebody who had. Oh gosh, I can't remember who it was. Some horrible examples, by the way. He thinks if you go out and beat your wife in public, that like Ray Rice should have got a second chance. No, he shouldn't.
Ray Rice has been blackballed, so he wasn't ever going to get a second chance.
You know how I feel about this. Deshaun Watson should not have got a second chance. Ray Lewis shouldn't have got a second chance. I'm sorry, just shouldn't. The other guys, yes, if you're committing, stupid, immature crimes, well, fine. But if you get in trouble for drugs, I'm not comparing. Drugs and alcohol can be a sickness, right? And I'll give guys a second chance. But when you're out there committing violent felonies, no, I'm not giving you a second chance.
I tell you who has had a second chance and has done well with it, and I'm glad for him because he had a just very rocky start out of college. It was Maurice Claret, currently was out of Ohio State, and he became a coach, and he coaching these kids, and he's telling them, hey. I was better than you. I was one of the best players, ever. And I didn't get drafted. Things happened, and now he's teaching them kids, and he's letting them know that you don't have an opportunity, but it's a very slim opportunity, and you got to take advantage of what you get.
And that's a very good story. And again, I don't think this is a guy who was out there committing violent crime. So he had,
he just was in a bad situation in his life.
He was in a bad position from the time he was at Ohio State right through his NFL career. So. Yes, I'll agree with you there. And by the way, now that I see Alex's profile, I think I've seen that picture before because I think I've asked what jersey that is. It looks like a 49er jersey, but I can't be sure. So I think Alec might have been with us at least one time before. So tell us who that jersey is, Alec, because I like to know these things. What do we got? We only got a few minutes left.
Was that a Rathman jersey, number 44?
That's what I was thinking. Does it say on the back?
I can't see it very well.
Nah, it doesn't look like Rathman.
Oh, that's Rathman's number for sure.
Looks like there's two T's on the end. Maybe it's a different team. Alec, if you're still with us, let us know who that is. I don't think I want to dive into the whole quarter. Well, listen, I'll talk about this. We'll talk about the NFL draft for a brief few minutes. And what I want to talk about, we'll stick to kind of a specific topic and one player. How is Anthony Richardson ranked as a number in a lot of drafts, the number 3 quarterback coming out of this draft? People got him going in the top 10. This kid, if you're just drafting athletic ability, okay, great. If you're drafting football players, this kid did not show anything at Florida that tells me this kid should.
Yeah, and then the problem is that there's not one team right now in the NFL that's ready to take him on and help develop him.
It is the 49ers. I thought so. That must be Rathman then. We can't read the back.
That's the reality. No, I don't. If you mention a team that might be ready to take Anthony Richardson, that could develop him and help him become a great quarterback. If you can mention, sure.
There you go. Okay.
If you can name one, I mean, there are probably a couple that might be able to do that.
Let me go back to that. See.
But to be honest with you, I feel like Richardson should probably stay another year in school, and he's not going to because of the money part. But there's just, I mean, even the Canadian League isn't as good as it was in development that in years past. So I don't know, man. That's taken a while, and he's a great athlete, man.
Well, you want to take him in the 4th round or something, right, as a project, but he's not going to play in the NFL next year. He's not going to play in the NFL for a while. He's not ready to play at the NFL level. He's not even ready to play at the college level.
Could you name one NFL team that you could put him on as a QB and he'll make better?
No.
That's the problem.
Not one. Because
and it's not that he's not a good player. It's not that he's not a good athlete. It's the fact that
he's a great athlete. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Not a great quarterback. Right?
I mean, that's the thing, though. We could say that about a lot of guys right now, and then they might have that one good year. Look at Geno Smith. For 8 years, he didn't do anything, and now he played 1 year.
Okay.
He did great. But again, those 8 years he took under his wing as being slightly developed in different places that he went and learning different things and outgrowing his own bravado, right? Because he was more like, yo, man, I was one of the best players in college football coming out.
He was also a 2nd-round draft pick, and we're talking about a guy who might go in the top 10. You're going to wait 8 years for a guy in the top 10 to develop. You're going to lose your job. I can tell you that.
Well, there's a lot of guys that when in year 8 to 12 were some of the best quarterbacks that we've seen to lead their teams to Super Bowls. And they weren't the best player on the team, but they were good enough like Geno Smith to get you there as a quarterback. So
no, but I mean, I can't think of a guy who took his team to the Super Bowl and developed after that many years. Trent Dilfer, who was not a great player, he led the Ravens played good quarterback. Mistake.
Brad Johnson.
High draft. Brad Johnson wasn't a high draft pick though.
That's true. He wasn't a high draft, but
guys, again, anybody who would have drafted Brad Johnson in a top 10 and waited 12 years for him to win a Super Bowl would have been fired long before that.
The Giants drafted a guy, and he's still on the team, and they're giving him a lot of money right now.
Let's see, because there's a.
I don't know where you want to go with this, man. You always defended Daniel Jones, so.
Well, I didn't.
And he was a number 6 pick.
The guy who drafted him lost his job.
He did lose his job, and the guy who kept him should lose his job too. Those two guys are done.
But it's a great example. And see, I know you want to get to the society thing. I don't know that we're going to get to it. We can talk more about it on Sunday. I don't think we're going to have time to carry that conversation any further because it's a deep conversation. But to your Daniel Jones comment, I keep saying he should not have been drafted number 6. I said.
Right. You do say that, but that's not what it is. That's not, and they're still paying him as he's a 1st-round draft pick. And
no, they're paying him now for his performance
after 5 years, 1 year, 1 season.
What they expect going forward because he's still a kid and he's progressed every single year. Every year he's gotten better.
I'm not saying he hasn't, and I'm not saying that but I don't think that he can consistently do it.
Don't blame Daniel Jones. Go blame your boy Deshaun Watson, who you think should be playing in the NFL. He's the one who destroyed the quarterback market or the Browns, I should say, not even Deshaun Watson. The Browns destroyed this quarterback market.
I just say, look, as long as they got good agents and they take care of themselves, that's just what it is.
Well, yeah, and that's what's going to happen. They get what do they get? 10%? But
Richardson, I don't know, man. If you want to take a crack at him. But don't. The thing is that you're going to take a crack at it. He wants to be a quarterback, and you're going to try to make him a tight end or something. That's going to.
No, they're talking about drafting him as a quarterback, but again, he's not ready to play. Will Levis is the most ready guy to play.
Woo! Did you watch Will Levis play this season in the SEC?
Ellis, he had no offensive line. I've watched Will Levis play since 2020, and he has gotten better every year. This year, he was banged up and had no offensive line, and still had some really good games. I mean, Kentucky as a whole was not as good as they were expected to be this year.
Yeah, I would. If I was a GM, I'd draft Levis in the 2nd round. I wouldn't pick him up second or third. I wouldn't pick him up in the first round.
He's not getting out of the top 10.
I
think if he's there,
I'm not the GM of these teams, and I'm not the one making decisions that are going to make me lose my job. So
I think
I'm good exactly where I am, my man.
I think Josh McDaniel takes him at 7 if he's still there, because he's not going to have Jimmy G for 5 years. I can tell you that. So. Anyway, great show today, guys. Thanks for joining NCAA, Anthony.
Enjoy your sports this weekend, guys.
Who else was with us? Alec, Anthony. Well, I can't remember who was with us. My mind is.
Bob was with us.
Guys, COVID fog still after 5 months. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you next week. We'll talk about the Final Four then.
Happy Friday.